Parker presents. From the team that brought you Angel's Awakening. After 100 years, Henry Hatcher is awoken to fight his mortal enemy. But he is not alone. Guardian Angel.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Or I guess it's still kind of afternoon.
Welcome to a special Saturday edition of Critique Corner with me, DB Fastbinder.
And me, Daniel Parker. Yes.
The show where two aspiring authors talk about movies and other media that they enjoy or take issue with, sometimes both at once.
Indeed. If you're returning, welcome back. If you're new, as DB said, we're a couple of writers who like to talk about stuff that we liked or hated, and it's usually something new or new-ish, and then something classic or older. Of course, we usually do box office, but we'll probably save that for next week, just because of the different stuff. Yeah.
Despicable Me made $27 million its opening day, and actually no, Despicable Me is hard to talk about because it opened on a Wednesday, so it's made $72 million so far, but yeah, we'll wait for the weekend to hash out.
Right, indeed, yeah. But as far as our first new review, which actually is a recent release, which is kind of a rare thing for us.
Well, there haven't been all that many brand new movies that have been coming out that we find all that interesting, really.
That's true. Yeah. Most new stuff isn't that good, or it's like you said, just doesn't really appeal to us. And of course, there's the writers and actors strikes that kind of screwed that up.
Yeah, which honestly, with that makes you wonder when this actually wrapped up filming.
Yeah. Yes, and to get into our first review here, Beverly Hills Cop,
Axel. I mean, it's all uppercase. So I mean, if I didn't know better, I'd assume it was just Axel.
Yeah, it's it's kind of I'm assuming it's a reference to the theme song, which is titled Axel F.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that song so many times, especially now that I've watched the movie again.
Yes.
Watched this movie, I should say. I never knew it was actually called Axel F.
Yeah. The
You're gonna get us copyright struck.
Oh jeez. Oh darn.
Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, aka Beverly Hills Cop 4, enters the pantheon of 80s revival projects that are afraid to have the number in the sequence in the name of the movie, probably because they don't want it to seem like you have to watch all the old ones to understand this one.
Correct. Yeah.
John Rambo.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
I know there's other examples.
Yeah.
It was all the rage about 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Or Star Trek. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. They didn't number any of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. They're all just Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Trek
Beyond
Taste. Yes.
Beyond Taste. Yeah. Yeah. Well, to get to this particular movie here, this is definitely trying to cash in on, or I don't know if they're trying to cash in on the nostalgia bait, because this dropped on Netflix.
I'm just going to be honest here. I think if this had gone to theaters, it would have been like we would have been talking about it as a oof, nobody wanted to go see this movie type thing.
Yeah, very true. Yeah,
because it is I would say this is a very safe movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But honestly, if you're in the year 2024 and you want to watch a new Beverly Hills Cop movie after what I understand was an awful Beverly Hills Cop 3, Safe is probably the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I will say, like, yeah. After I watched this movie, I actually went back and watched the first three. And um, yesterday was my first viewing of Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Okay.
Um, and I don't think the movie was as bad as everyone was saying it was, but it certainly wasn't a good movie.
So is it kind of a Godfather 3 situation where people can appreciate things about the movie, just doesn't live up to the first two?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so this movie picks up, yeah, in, of course, modern day, where Axel Foley, of course played by Eddie Murphy, he's still a Detroit detective, even though he's like in his 60s.
Which, let me tell you, like, if you had told me that the character was supposed to be 50, I would have believed it. I don't know if Eddie Murphy is just extremely well preserved or if he had some subtle work done, but he doesn't look as old as he should.
No, he doesn't. He looks good. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so the movie starts off where he's Axel is he's at a Detroit Red Wings game with another cop, and the only reason he's there is because he knows that the uh, one of the locker rooms, I'm assuming it's the Red Wings locker room, is about to get robbed. They're looked like they were stealing, like, like Stanley Cup rings and stuff. Which, okay, having been a fan of professional sports for a good amount of time, let me tell you something. Those guys, they don't go to games with their championship rings. They keep those those are in a bank, in a lockbox somewhere. Like, they don't just go to games with their $50,000, $100,000 championship rings from Tiffany's or whatever. It's just like,
What? You mean to tell me that this movie started off with an unlikely premise?
yes. And hey, Ninja, good to see you.
Hey, Ninja, I was wondering if you'd be here today.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
And I don't know if you noticed, but he has been wrenched. So
Gasp.
yes, I figured it was time for that to happen. So congrats, Ninja.
Yes.
And he says they will go to the games. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, we actually are going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. um, but yeah. So Axel's tried to stop this robbery in the Detroit Red Wings locker room, and then they basically reenact the truck chase from the first movie.
Oh, yeah. It had been a bit since we watched that. I hadn't quite thought of it as like a total rehash. I was actually going to give him some credit.
Yeah, I was too, but then when I went back and watched the first one, oh, they're just doing the chase from the first movie. Yeah.
I'm just immediately thinking to myself as I hear your tone as you talk about this movie. It sounds like the ideal watching order for this movie is to have seen Beverly Hills Cop many years ago, so that this movie seems like a little bit fresher and like more nostalgic than if you're just directly comparing it to the original.
Yeah, I would say that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so then Eddie Murphy, or sorry, Axel, he gets in trouble with his boss, who's now Paul Reiser, who was in the first two movies. He was his buddy in those,
Okay.
and now he's his boss. And my first thought when I saw that was I thought it was going to be kind of like Top Gun Maverick, with how, like, Iceman was always bailing Maverick out of trouble. And I think that's kind of what was going on there. Like, Paul Reiser was always bailing Axel out of trouble.
Right. Well, this time he went too far, and they want his badge, so he's just retiring to save Axel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, in California, there's shady doings happening.
Yes. We're introduced to Jane, who is Axel's estranged daughter. She's working as a lawyer for this drug guy who's being set up for killing a Beverly Hills cop. Um,
Not Axel Foley, an actual Beverly Hills Cop.
yeah, an actual Beverly, yeah, 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 and so they're trying to, so she's trying to figure that out, and then she's working with uh, Billy Rosewood, that was Judge Reinhold's character. He was the younger detective of the Beverly Hills police officers, and we find out that he actually left the force because of this, because he suspects that there's corruption in the department, but nobody believes him, including his old partner Taggart, who's now the chief of police.
Yeah, and so they have some interesting bits with the daughter, who I'm reminded of when I watched the legendary films Godzilla King of the Monsters movie without having seen the 2014 Godzilla movie, where I gave the movie extra credit because I assumed that that these were characters who had carried over from the first movie, so things that weren't established
Yeah.
would make sense with that context. I had just assumed that, oh, okay, I bet that in Beverly Hills Cop 3, Jane was just like a little girl or a baby or something. Nope, new character,
Nope, yeah, completely new character. Yeah, uh,
played by Taylor Page, who looked over her IMDb. I would say she has steady work.
mhm.
Got her start as a featured dancer in High School Musical 3 of all things.
Mm. Yeah, I can't speak to that because I never saw any of those movies.
I saw the first one because of my sister.
Mm.
I used to annoy her because there are these two characters who are their brother and sister who seem a little too close, and they had this one song, "This feeling's like no other," and then I'd always add, "Even though you're my brother." Just irritated her so much. So that was my revenge for having any knowledge and opinion of that High School Musical. Moving on.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so the movie from there is Axel shows up, and the threads are he's trying to save Judge Reinhold, who's been captured by the baddies.
Mhm,
Um, he's trying to reconnect with his daughter, so it's a classic Hollywood bad dad story,
mhm.
and it's the usual. So I've only ever seen the first one of this, but that movie was like a weird mix of. I kept thinking like Axel Foley is a bard or a rogue because he just like his default motive, like anything, like he never shows up and just says who he is and why he's there. It's always just he's spinning some sort of lie immediately.
Yeah, yeah. Tom Connors over at Midnight's Edge, I think, characterized him pretty well. He's basically a con artist with a badge.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So he never tells anybody who he really is because probably because it's like, well, if I walk in there and I tell everybody they're a cop, I tell people I'm a cop, they're just gonna clam up. They're gonna be quiet. Yeah.
Plus, at least in the first movie and this one, you only really see him not in his jurisdiction, so it makes sense in when he's acting extra legally in Beverly Hills that he never is upfront about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. There's even although there's one part in the movie where I think it's the same hotel he stays at in the first one, where he shows up there and walks up to the front desk, and he's trying to be like, he's trying to do this like British accent, and he's like, oh, and I'm too tired.
Yeah.
Like,
How much for a room?
yeah. Do you have any rooms? Like, oh yeah, it was like $1,000 a night.
Yeah,
And he's
just like 900 something a night. Yeah, it's like, man, I love Beverly Hills.
yeah. Well, what's funny was in the first one, the the room rate was like $235 a night, which
Oof, there's your
damn,
inflation rate.
there's your inflation. Yeah.
So I would say that strengths of and actually, this is very much trying to be the first movie again.
Hmm.
It is kind of like Kroger brand Top Gun Maverick in the sense that it's kind of the same movie over again.
Yeah.
The difference was that where there Tom Cruise had kind of it was like addressing that he had gotten older and was, getting up there, and this was probably his last hurrah.
Yeah.
This one, it was more just like, well, here's another adventure, and some people will pay lip service to the fact that he's kind of too old for this, but the thing is, like, he doesn't look or act like he's too old for this. Like, you could totally believe him doing a Beverly Hills Cop 5.
Yeah. Yeah, you could, because he looks really good. He doesn't look a day over 50. And he's looked like he was in decent shape. Not.
Yeah, like I didn't see any like too glaring stuntmen or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so you got the two weird elements. I kind of got distracted. So the two elements of Beverly Hills Cop are you have sort of somewhat edgy comedy interspersed with pretty brutal action scenes, actually, when you get down to it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I will say I think the second movie had probably more brutal action scenes than any of these other ones. Probably because Tony Scott directed that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and John Landis directed the third one, which is kind of interesting because he and Eddie Murphy had a falling out after coming to America.
Hmm.
But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it ends. It's a very interesting juxtaposition between those two elements of it, where it's very similar to True Lies, where it's like, yeah, you have those comedic elements, but at the same time you get these over the top action sequences, and it's like, whoa.
Uh, this is a plot that you could have totally done like a Dirty Harry movie for, and the tone would just be totally different, even though the actual underlying crimes could be completely identical, and
Yeah.
the ending shootout could be completely identical.
Right. Yeah.
It's just Eddie Murphy is the secret sauce to it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Eddie Murphy himself.
Mhm.
Daniel, how do you feel that he did in this one?
I kind of felt like he phoned it in a little.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time he was actually in anything?
Well, good question.
I will say we reviewed a couple of his 80s movies last year, and I kind of noticed that he wasn't really acting with his face at all when he was in his 20s. He
Yeah.
definitely has more range now. That matched my memory of watching various of his movies from the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's right. He did Coming to America, a sequel to the one.
I've never heard anybody say anything good about that one.
Yeah, I haven't either. Other than that, he really hadn't done much. Oh, I forgot that they were going to do a TV show of Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is it incoming or is it fail? I know that there was like one that was caught in development hell.
Yeah, it was. I think they filmed the pilot for it, but it didn't get picked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on through the rest of the cast, his old buddies. I would say if I had a criticism, I wish we had more Judge Reinhold.
Yeah. Yeah, he's barely in it, which was disappointing. Yeah, because his character was actually really. Trying to think of a good way to describe him. Kind of naive, but he can be really intense.
Yeah, like he was. He kind of was very enthusiastic about this new world of opportunities that Axel was showing him.
Yeah, yeah,
Even if that world of possibilities included a titty bar.
yeah.
Speaking of, there is nothing nearly that graphic or interesting in this movie.
No, there isn't.
It is like it's been shot to be mostly TV safe.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think ever since like Me Too and everything else, I don't think they really do strip club scenes anymore. At least not mainstream Hollywood movies.
I would also say a weird thing about the movie is that there isn't really like anybody who I could call like a secondary character. It's like a buddy cop film where he keeps rotating who the buddy is.
Yeah, it's either his daughter or it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who's he's an old helicopter pilot who became a cop.
Which they used that for one scene,
Yeah,
which I'll say some of the set pieces were pretty amusing
yeah.
slash exciting.
Yeah, they were. The CGI was a little rough in a few places, but I mean, I guess that's to be
Yeah.
expected for a
Eh, Oh yeah.
straight to
Did
movie.
you notice like the bad CGI when he was in the three-wheeled parking meter car, like, and he went down the stairs?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was wondering if that was just me. Like, I actually was questioning myself. Well, do the wheels actually move that way on those cars? I can't say I've ever seen one fly through the air before, so maybe I'm wrong. But no,
Yeah,
if you're noticing dodgy CGI too, then
yeah.
um,
Uh,
eh, there's a weird romantic subplot between Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character and the daughter, and in two
yeah,
different scenes, they keep making a point about, like, as soon as he's in the room with the two of them together, um, Axel's like, hey, did you two have intercourse?
yeah,
And another character makes reference to, man, you two just have immediate chemistry with each other. We didn't see it.
yeah, yeah. I didn't see it. Yeah, none of us saw it. Yeah. It was actually it was Serge from the first movie.
All right, I forgot that he showed up again. Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole scene was kind of unnecessary, aside from it being an excuse to have Serge show up to help out with something.
Yeah, that oh no, that was purely a member berry. Yeah. Oh, you remember Surge? Oh yeah. Remember when he and Eddie Murphy they're ad libbing their dialogue? Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Remember when he had an accent of indefinite origin, but he was definitely gay?
Yeah.
Anyway, it kind of ends in a very predictable way. I almost wondered if they had gotten the same mansion as they shot the first movie in, because it looked so similar.
Probably, yeah. They do look similar. Although like mansions like that in Beverly Hills are like a dime a dozen. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, apparently that one back in the one from Beverly Hills Cop 1 sold for like 30 million back in 2009 or so.
mm,
Probably because they could tack on another, few figures by well, this is the one where Beverly Hills Cop was shot.
yeah, yeah. They do that with houses and movies, celebrities. Like
Yep.
there are actually a lot of celebrities. They'll make money just like buying a house and flipping it.
Oh, because oh, hey, Hulk Hogan lived here for 3 months.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but I would say like this wasn't a bad time.
Yeah. It was kind of like the third movie. I don't think it's a bad movie, but it's really not great. Yeah.
Uh, uh, This one did okay. I'll say there were a couple of jokes I liked. Well, they did do one. They were pulling up his file, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's like, "You had three different incidents: one in 1984, one in 1987, and then one in 1994. Let's not talk about that one." Or something along those lines.
Or it was well, that was not your finest hour.
Oh, that's right. That's what the joke was.
Yeah.
And then early on, like in the Red Wings scene, probably the funniest thing in the whole movie was him giving the white guy he was with, like, just scared about being called a racist. Like, uh,
Yeah.
what you assume that I wouldn't be a fan of hockey? Well, my grandfather was in the old black league up in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
You call yourself a hockey fan? You don't even know
Oh,
about
you
that
do.
old league?
Yeah.
Uh, it's always a problem though when your funniest moment is in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
But that was like that was probably the scene where he was like phoning it in the least. Yeah,
Yeah. I'd say so. Yeah.
I'd say if you're a fan of Beverly Hills Cop 1 and you haven't seen that movie for a while, like, again, recent viewers, it's kind of like the Force Unleashed, not the Force Unleashed, the Force Awakens. Force Awakens, where not having seen A New Hope, shortly before you watch that one would probably help the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it helped with mine the first time I saw it, and then I went and watched A New Hope again and went, oh wait.
this is just a carbon copy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that's everything we need to say.
Yes. Yeah.
uh, well, speaking of things that are unexpected, I'm just gonna let you drink that in for a moment there.
Joker with is the baby supposed to be Bruce Wayne?
Yes. So this is this is a more of a first impressions review. So because I've only read 3 chapters out of the 2 volumes I was gifted for my birthday.
Uh,
Um, this is a strange one. Basic premise is the Joker was having one of his duels with Batman, and Batman fell into a tub of a experimental anti-aging cream and came out as a baby. And so now Joker has decided. Now, when when I had heard about this premise before, I had assumed that Joker would be trying to raise Batman to corrupt him, but it's actually different. He's actually trying to raise Batman to be an avatar of justice because otherwise, what is he fighting against?
ah,
Which that's definitely more of an interesting twist.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of with Ninja on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
So in the 3 chapters I've read so far, it's been entirely focused on Joker basically having to be a single parent.
Mm,
And so it's things like him not getting any sleep, buying the wrong size of diapers for Bruce, and being worried that oh no, they're too big. You're gonna mess everywhere. And it's like it's a little focused on some of the practical aspects of having a baby to the extent where I think that's like, is this going to be fixated on this the whole time?
yeah.
Like, is this somebody's barely disguised fetish? I hope that as I continue to read, the second volume has a picture of Harley on it, so I think that'll be I think that'll make things more interesting, just because it'll you'll have a dual parent thing, and I can just predict that she'll want to oh, Mr. J, we're gonna be a happy family, you and me.
Yeah.
I'll say initial impression after 3 chapters, it's definitely different. I don't.
Yeah.
Uh, what I think is interesting about it is that there's the whole subtext of, oh, does the Joker love Batman? Is the Joker reliant on Batman? That is just text in this one. Like, that is like he just openly states to himself out loud that you know like Batman is like, oh yeah, I have to. Without you, I wouldn't have justice to fight against, or along those lines.
Yeah, man.
So it's definitely a thing that exists.
Yeah. Well. Well, you're not
I,
going to catch me watching or reading this.
yeah, I'll probably report back in once I've read some more of it. But this was so bizarre that I just had to inflict it on people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome, buddy.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of people being inflicted by having things inflicted on them that probably confuse and irritate them.
Yes.
So Whole Life Productions, if you've lived under a rock online, they are a VTuber company where they basically took over the internet in 2020 when everyone was locked home,
Hmm.
and they have steadfastly refused to release people from the rabbit hole just yet.
Yeah.
And as part of their new, we basically did a business profile of them, where they're basically a talent agency. They sell merchandise and they do partnerships with companies. This is a bit of a step up from doing a jingle with some of the performers to saying instant curry.
Yeah.
They actually teamed up with the LA Dodgers and had an event last night where if you went to the game, you got these trading cards with these 3 different performers here. They had the girls saying, they during the game itself, they had a few instances where the 2 performers who don't really speak English just did like some short messages, like Pecora counted off 1, 2, 3. I was not there, but the clips have been flying heavy on Twitter. So,
Oh yeah.
the one that's really gotten the attention is Gura saying "Take me out to the ball game."
Yeah.
And then they had a drone show afterwards with Suisse singing her music. And I'll put this up as an example of Cover Corp being intelligent. Because you might go, the LA Dodgers. What the hell does whole life have to do with the LA Dodgers?
Yeah.
Well, so I live up in the Seattle area. It used to be that I believe Nintendo finally sold their stake in the Seattle Mariners, but for a while the Mariners was trying to make itself the magnet for any Japanese tourists who wanted to see an American baseball game. Because we had Ichiro Suzuki for a number of years there, and some other people. And I don't know if other stadiums had this, but this is the Nintendo ownership. If you had a 3DS while you were at the baseball game, you could interact with apps on it if you were on the network.
That's interesting.
Well, that crown has moved to Los Angeles, and because they have was it Shohei
Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani, thank you. I thought that was his last name, but I don't sports very often, so
It's all right.
Ninja brings up an interesting point that I'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
It is just so surreal seeing things that I'm aware of from the online verse bleed into reality in any way.
Yeah.
So other intelligent aspects of this, first off, it probably sold a lot of Dodgers tickets to weebs who otherwise wouldn't care about sports.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to see the drone show and get the playing cards. And apparently the lines at the merchandise store was left the stadium at some point.
Oh, wow.
Also, this happened to line up with Anime Expo. So that was smart. It means you only have, if you already have a bunch of staff in California, it's not too much of a headache to also organize this at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
It is just so surreal because as I was looking up images for this, you have the LA Times talking about how having pictures of Gargora and talking about how Dodgers are using this to try to appeal to the Japanese audience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit like I remember there was an episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza, Jason Alexander's character, he tries to keep his friend world and his girlfriend world separate, and then his girlfriend and his friends start hanging out, and he's like, my worlds are colliding. It's a bit like this, yeah.
Yes. Ninja brought up apparently the Dodgers were behind, and then Gura saying take me out to the ball game, and they rallied and won, which that's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll show this. I'll say that more the intelligence of Whole Life Productions. Why these three? Well, besides them all being popular, they're all blue, so it goes with the Dodgers colors.
Yeah.
And they're also all some of the least sexualized members. So
Yeah.
no uncomfortable jiggle physics to worry about with anybody.
Yeah. They don't have Coroni or yeah.
or crony for that matter.
Yeah.
Yep, just more intelligent businessmanship from, to coin a word, from our buddies over at Cover Corp. And it still feels weird that you can launch something on YouTube and have it show up in reality.
Yeah, it is.
But there you go.
Yep.
I didn't intend for this placement to so we kind of had Goofus over here in terms of mashing up American and Japanese IP.
Yeah.
Then we have Gallant over here.
Yeah.
And then, well, which category does Suicide Squad Isekai fall into? That's the question.
I don't know. really weird and yeah.
So yeah, so Suicide Squad Isekai. Man, if the Joker doesn't show up again, this cover is a lie.
Yeah, just like the movie.
So yeah, boy, where to start? Okay, this is basically an anime adaptation of the Suicide Squad, mashed up with the idea of the Suicide Squad ending up in a typical isekai anime.
Yeah, it's yeah. So it starts off where Ninja. I can't unsee that either. There was no reason for that. Um,
Right? Why didn't you have Harley or Katana doing that dance?
yeah, I don't know. Jeez.
Heck, I would even accepted Rick Flag, or it, you could have channeled some of that Peacemaker energy, ending energy, and had Peacemaker doing that dance.
Oh yeah, yeah. But no.
Nope.
But yeah, so Amanda Waller. Uh, oh hey Dave, good to see you, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Yeah, Dave Brink, Genuine Comics. Check out Perfect 10. I believe he's on Indiegogo. But yeah, so Amanda Waller figures out there's a portal to this other fantasy realm, and so she puts the squad together, and it consists of it's Harley Quinn, Peacemaker, Clayface, King Shark, and
Deadshot, is that his name?
Deadshot. Thank you. Yes, Deadshot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, they run into Rick Flag while they're there.
Yes.
Yeah, the way the show starts though is kind of interesting because it's Joker and Harley on a crime spree.
Yes. Yeah. Harley's with Puddin Chan.
Yeah, it was kind of amusing listening just to say "Pudding Chan" over and over again.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll say that this is a pretty crappy version of the Joker, in my opinion. They do this thing where he has his normal makeup, but he looks suspiciously close to the version from Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, where it's just kind of slim and gaunt, I guess.
Yeah.
One of those sexy rap boys that Twitter and TikTok are apparently all about right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing is that he has his normal makeup, but he has drawn a grinning teeth over his mouth. So every time he opens his mouth, it just looks very strange.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Which is good because he's gone after the first scene where Harley gets captured and imprisoned.
Yes.
So that's basically our introduction to this being a world of supervillains, and it's actually not a bad way to introduce everything.
No, it isn't. The setup was, kind of very similar to a normal, squad setup, where they're,
Right.
put them all together, and then they, of course, put the bombs in their necks in case they think about trying to escape. And although there's another aspect of that comes into play, because they have to report in, like, I think, like every 72 hours. Otherwise the bombs will go off. And but what happens is when they get in their helicopter and they're going to the fantasy world, the helicopter gets shot down, and their whatever handler guy gets killed in the crash.
Yep. So they basically have 72 hours to get over to the remains of Rick Flag's ship that he showed up on to try and fix things. Right. Because they kill a bunch of orcs, get captured, break out of prison with Rick Flag, who had been there for longer. And as they go, the other criminals from the previous squad that he had come with are basically acting as mini bosses.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Yeah, because you had like Katana, and then who else?
You had a guy called Rat, who I don't know if he was an existing character or not.
Oh yeah, his the character's daughter was in the James Gunn.
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of the James Gunn Suicide Squad, this definitely takes a lot of cues from that one in
Yeah, it
terms of the
does.
cast. Clayface is the standout as it almost feels like they included him because he was in the Harley Quinn cartoon.
Hmm.
And I would say, just like that show, he's actually a really good ad.
Yeah, he is. And he doesn't stay in his clay form all the time. He's usually in his human form, and he's the actor version of the character. I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
the name of the actor, but the guy. But yeah,
Hammy minor actor who that's kind of the best Clayface you could do for something with a comedic bent like this has,
yeah,
where he's a washed up actor who, went and clayified himself by mistake.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
uh,
And then yeah,
oh, go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say, and then you had Peacemaker, who's obviously the John Cena Peacemaker.
Yes, very much John Cena.
Uh,
um, the unfortunate, actually, no, I don't. No, there's no way for the dub that they got Sylvester Stallone to voice King Shark. As amazing as that would be.
no, yeah.
Uh, Now we have to speculate because for some reason, and okay, HBO Max or Max as you're now called,
Mhm.
stop making language tracks different shows.
Yeah.
We ran into that with Bell, and now we've run into that here. Except that, as far as I could tell when I went looking, uh, there isn't a dub version available.
No, there isn't. It's only the Japanese version, which
Uh,
yeah, I because I think you were saying before the show that you've seen clips of the dub,
Yeah,
floating around.
I saw something where they were doing a comparison between the dub and not dub versions of Harley Quinn and
Yeah,
Joker. So at the very least, like maybe they released a preview of it? Question mark.
yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go to the. Okay, they do have episode 4 up now. Let's find out if they have the dub version up yet. Maybe they have addressed our complaint in the meantime.
Maybe, yeah,
Let's find
and
out.
yeah, there's also this other aspect with the
Nope,
show
they have
where
not.
they have not. Oh, yeah, jeez.
Yeah, my dad who loves DC stuff but doesn't do anime. Um, he said that he had a hard time keeping track of things with the subtitles.
Yeah, yeah. We'll say the subtitles did go by a little too quickly for
Very
me.
rapid fire.
Yeah, because I am a bit of a slow reader, so I'm just like, oh, come on, I have to rewind and
Yeah. At least you have this option when you're streaming instead of being in a movie theater.
that's true.
Um, so you might ask, okay, it's an isekai show. Why are they in this other world? It's strictly because Amanda Waller thought, oh, there's resources here. Now let's go pillage them.
Yep.
Because of course, because it's Amanda Waller involved, it couldn't be like, oh, there's a dark wizard who we think is a threat to our world, and we can't trust the Justice League because they'll want to control access to the portal or something. It
Yeah.
can't have it be remotely, heroic or anything like that. Got it.
Yeah. It's got to be yeah, underhanded and evil.
Naked aggression and imperialism.
Right. Yeah.
Which I gotta say, after multiple movies with Amanda Waller, I'm very tired of that character. Apparently, the big DC Comics event is based on Amanda Waller this year, and the scuttlebutt I've heard is that it's not selling well because everybody is tired of Amanda Waller at this point.
Yeah. I can say I'm tired of her too, and to go back and re-mention what we said before. I didn't need to see her doing that dance sequence in the end credits.
Yeah, it was strange. I will say that there were some interesting little moments in the first episode where it's like she just no sells the portal going awry, I think a piece of debris almost hits her head, or no, it
Yeah.
hits her head, and it just like takes some hair off and cuts her, and she just doesn't. That's probably the best moment with her.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the setup, it's basically as pointless as most isekai shows, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Where there's some intrigue is that there is a princess character who is like the good princess in a seemingly bad kingdom,
Hmm.
who looks suspiciously close to Harley. So I think they are clearly going to do a Prince and the Pauper switch at some point.
Yes, yeah.
They have to. Like she looks so similar to her. Their hair is even the same basic length.
Yeah, same facial structure, everything. It's just like, okay, yeah, they're gonna switch places at some point. Yeah.
Right. Or we're alternate universe doubles or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
As far as the animation goes, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times.
Hmm.
Because for some of the action sequences, it's actually pretty smooth and well done. Then there's things where they so clearly cheaped out. Like, did you notice in the second episode when they're doing the prison break that the kingdom seems to exclusively employ guys with black hair and a big bushy mustache?
Yes. Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah.
Geez, like they did that so it was easy to animate.
Well, little pro tip: just have them wearing helmets that cover
Yes,
their faces.
right. And you have like one captain who isn't wearing it, so he seems like more of a character.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they're not wearing helmets and are like personified means it's a little uncomfortable when King Shark proceeds to devour them, bones and all.
Yeah.
Um,
Jeez.
but on the other hand, there are also some moments in like the first and third episodes where I'm going, is this seriously the same studio that gave us Spy Family, among other like actually good anime?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that too because it felt really I don't know. I don't know if it was just like a really low frame rate or something, but it seemed really like janky to me.
Right, especially in episode 3, they have a bit with well, an admittedly funny bit where Deadshot thinks that he is best friends with this guy named Rat,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was unintentionally bullying him the whole time they were in prison together.
Yeah.
But like that flashback was just so like the character designs were rough, the animation was low frame rate, just looks bad in places.
Yeah.
I actually found myself wishing that this premise could be done without the DC element, which sounds weird, but here's where I'm saying it. There has been like every isekai concept known to man has been attempted at this point by the Japanese light novel industry.
Hmm.
Like 5, nearly 10 years ago now, the one where the guy is reincarnated as a vending machine.
Yeah. Or slime.
Yes, I don't know. Slime seems like less of a leap than a vending machine.
Yeah.
But the idea of having a group of military contractors ending up in an isekai scenario is actually kind of interesting.
Hmm.
And them developing magical powers as a result of being in this magical world is also potentially interesting. Although in this one, like the characters are just gaining new superpowers, or their existing superpowers are strengthening as they're in the isekai world, which is it's an element. Like it lets them take some fairly constrained DC characters and do some anime style crazy action with them.
Yeah, like Clayface. He can do
Right.
do new stuff with his powers, and yeah.
Yep. But like, would I recommend it? I mean, I would say that if you enjoy anime and you really liked the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, this is definitely up your alley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ninja points out, and I was going to not say the name Gate. Contractors going into Isekai world sounds close to Gate, right? It would be somewhat similar. Just you could do some things to make it different.
Right.
Like they're stuck there. Make it so that's like the thing with Gate is that it's really just the JSDF owns everybody repeatedly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Which, mind you, it's that can be interesting for a little bit, but they kind of don't have a whole lot of threats that they have to. It's ironically the usual isekai Mary Sue problem where you have an overpowered main character. Just the main character is the Japanese army with modern weapons and materials.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, what can we do with this? I don't know.
Mow down dragons. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Also, interestingly, as a tie-in to our previous item about the Whole Alive Dodgers team up, the ending song was done by Maury Calliope from Whole Alive English.
I didn't know that, huh?
I will say, part of the reason I wanted to do this was I was curious of how good how it worked in context. Max, if I want to watch the ending credits of your show that you have spent the money to hire a VTuber to sing, stop making it so hard for me not to just skip right to the next episode. I want to watch the credits.
Yeah.
I don't care about the opening. The opening is like a very lazy song, in my opinion.
It was, yeah.
And it's weird. Anime made for Western streaming services, I swear, always ends up with very. This is weird because it's like they assume everybody is going to skip the opening.
Yeah.
But then they put effort into the ending, which is way harder not to skip on Max. So
Yeah.
it's weird.
Yeah. Jeez.
But overall, I'd say it wasn't for me. But that's because I only watched. Hey, why didn't DB ever do a review of the James Gunn Suicide Squad? Because I got about halfway through and said, this is kind of ugly. It makes me feel bad, so I'm going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like the vision of the world that every Suicide Squad media brings to it, or at least the modern ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of with you. I really didn't like it all that much. Yeah, there were elements of it I thought were kind of interesting, but overall, I'm just like, I really don't care.
Probably the most visually interesting thing in it was that the world is a bunch of floating mountains. It's like characters do fall off of the mountains into the sky, so you don't know what's down there. But I really liked the map that the kingdom had set up of this world, just because it looked like it was stitched together out of leather, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
I will also say this is probably the best version of Harley Quinn we've gotten for a bit, which is not saying much, but it's a version of Harley Quinn that interacts with and cares about the Joker. And
yeah.
So that's progress, right?
Yeah.
What's really funny about this is I'm sure that somebody I can't tell if this was rushed or not, because I think that there are aspects of the animation that seem like it is rushed. You almost wonder if somebody at Warner Brothers said, "Hey, wait a minute, we have our bound to be major hit Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League video game coming out, and we know that the Cyberpunk anime on Netflix led to a lot of renewed interest in a game that people had left behind.
Yeah.
Hey, what if about 6 months or so after our surefire hit video game comes out, we drop an anime on our streaming service? That'll make people pay attention." I doubt this is going to bring anybody over to the Suicide Squad video game.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Apparently, this was the second most watched thing on Max, which we contributed to. So it's working for Max at least. So,
yeah.
Other people I've seen have more of a positive reaction, but those other people probably had more of a positive reaction to Suicide Squad for the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie anyway. So
yeah,
there's definitely a market for it.
Yeah.
I will say though, can we please give the Suicide Squad a rest? Maybe give the Teen Titans an actually good TV show, or like an anime Legion of Superheroes where you just let the creators go wild would probably be really visually amazing.
Yeah. So I'd be all for that. Yeah.
Or if you wanted to do like something a little bit subversive, Batman and the Outsiders, and you could have Katana there and Metamorpho and some other characters that you could do cool things with.
Yeah.
But now someone over at Warner Brothers, it's like they don't like their actually heroic characters and keeps pushing the Suicide Squad into everything.
Yeah, that makes you wonder.
Yeah. Well, speaking of warriors who are out of their context,
Oh yes.
time to move on to a movie recommended to us by a friend of the show, Edwin Acevedo, last week.
Yes. Yeah. This is one of his favorite movies. The 13th Warrior, which um, is based on the Michael Crichton novel Eaters of the Dead, which
Hey, Daniel, not to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
my phone just notified me. Apparently, Critique Corner is streaming right now.
uh,
This might be the most okay. I haven't ever gotten the notification on my phone when the stream was already over, but this is pushing it, considering
yeah,
this is our last thing.
yeah. Come on, give us a break, YouTube, please. Man.
Oh well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but
Please continue.
yeah. So it's based on so 13th Warrior is based on Michael Crichton novel Eaters of the Dead, which I think this movie was originally going to be called Eaters of the Dead, but they're like, we don't like that title. Um, and It's basically Michael Crichton's version of Beowulf. Um, it starts off with Antonio Banderas' character Abin, who is was he Persian or Arab? I can't remember.
I believe he was Arab.
Arab, yeah.
So this is basically set at, so to give some context. This is set at a time period where you have the Caliphate, which was set up in Baghdad. It was after the initial Muslim conquest, so I believe this was still the stage of things where you basically had an unbroken empire from Spain to touching India.
Yeah.
Um, and this is based on a historical figure where we actually have some of his writings left over. Let me just get his name here. And it started off as like a literary challenge between Crichton and a friend of his. A friend of his was just saying that, Beowulf is a bad story. It's boring. There's nothing good in it. The only reason we remember it is because it's like the oldest surviving story in English
hmm
or something similar to English.
Yeah.
And he decided that, he took the challenge to make an interesting story out of it. I'm about halfway through the novel right now, and the movie did change some things, but so far it seems like a reasonably faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
The novel itself is a bit dry because he's basically taken the guy's named Ahmad ibn Fadlan, who
Okay.
wrote a story or the story of his travels. He was basically in the movie they have it that he messed with the wrong guy's wife. And it was similar in the novel, just with more steps.
Ah.
Um, and he gets sent away to the north to. In the movie, they actually have it where the Vikings are his goal. In this one, he's going north to try to bring Islam to what would today be part of Russia or Ukraine, and then he happens to cross some. At the time on the Volga River, there were a lot of Vikings who were going down at the Volga Northmen,
Okay.
and so the actual story that he wrote, the actual what we have left of his report, uh, is one of the only stories we have from the period about people interacting with the Northmen that wasn't people being R-worded and pillaged by them.
Oh.
So he has like a fairly unbiased take on them,
Okay.
which makes him an interesting historical resource.
Yeah.
But so basically, the novel is a bit dry because it is imitating the style of the original story.
Hmm.
And then, like at a certain point, it suddenly diverges into becoming a Beowulf, where he runs into in the novel he's named Bullywif.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the movie, when he runs into the Vikings, and he's kind of basically trying to understand them and their ways and everything, and then a young boy shows up and tells him that their village is being attacked by you know marauders or whoever, and
Right. Like in
And
the
yeah,
mysterious force, they won't tell the foreigner among them who they are really.
right. And so uh their little they have this woman who's like the soothsayer, and she says, oh, they need 13 warriors to help them out. And so bunch of they all stand up and volunteer. And then she says, oh no, the 13th one has to be a foreigner.
Right. And so he gets recruited because in the movie version, it's just him and an old man who's with him. So he's
Yeah,
the only one who could possibly do this adventure. Um,
right. Yeah.
One of the things that I bits of context you get by reading the book is that like you get footnotes, which you can't really do a footnote in a movie.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and the footnote is that the Vikings thought the number 13 was interesting because they did a lunar calendar. So by their measurement, a year was 13 moons.
Mm. Hmm.
But they thought the number 13 was interesting because they knew it didn't really math out, so they had to make adjustments. So the 13th of something was like always out of place, which is
Uh,
why, like for ritual purposes, that's why he got forced to go on this adventure.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that kind of tracks with Crichton, Michael Crichton's writing. Like he did a lot of research in his books, when he would, the
Hmm.
on all the topics that he would do. Like, and so yeah, like if you ever read like any of his books, yeah, they're just footnotes everywhere. um but yeah, that's yeah, I was curious about that, because didn't somebody say, oh, the 13th month or something like that? I'm like, what?
They might have. I don't remember
Yeah,
that
yeah.
specifically.
But
Yes.
yeah, but
So you have the contrast between you have these 12, brutish Vikings. They have a scene where they just to show like how disgusted he is with them. Um, where the Vikings, they'll wash up, spit, blow their nose in a tub of water, and they just hand it over to the next guy, and the guy repeats the ritual.
yeah, yeah, they hand it to him, and he's like, nah, I'm good.
Right. Yeah, this is from the book,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
was not made up.
yeah.
Uh, so he ends up with them. He slowly learns their language. Actually, very rapidly learns their language, but
Mhm.
that's
It's
movie time.
yeah, yeah, it's yeah, move, yeah, move. Got to keep it moving. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and let's see here. So they end up there and they learn a few things. People have seen the great fireworm.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, yeah, so I think I might have derailed things slightly with talking about the book a bit. So just to
That's
make
okay.
sure we're on the same page. I think you mentioned this, but again, we since I derailed things. So he's going up north. It's him and the 12 other warriors and their travels. He's kind of an effete soft man just because he was living in what was, except for possibly parts of China. I'm not familiar with the time period of East Asia. Like China would be the only real competition for like the biggest city in the world and the most
Yeah,
civilized city in the world.
yeah,
So he's definitely out of his element.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so he's there with the new king Bullywhiff or Beowulf if you prefer,
yeah,
um, and they are helping to fight off this force called the Wendell, and they find out Grendel, and they
yeah.
find out that there's been sites that have not been seen for many years that are showing up again. I remember my grandfather telling me about the great fireworm that would come down from the mountains, and,
Yeah,
the Wendell have uh, yeah, the Wendell have been seen again, and they come across farmlands that have been pillaged, and every corpse they find has had a few bites taken out.
yeah, yeah. They think they're like, these creatures, they're like monsters of some kind. And then
Or
but then
demons.
yeah, or yeah, demons, yes. And but then they kind of quickly realize that they're basically just men who are,
Well, where they figure it out is they do a so in the original Beowulf story, Grendel shows up in the middle of the night attacking the mead hall, and
Right.
uh, I think Beowulf himself cuts off his arm. Well, the, they imitate that here uh, with Antonio Banderas' character doing the same trick, and that shows, oh, that wasn't claws. It's like somebody wearing a bear hide.
Yeah.
And so let's take a step back again, because this movie is interesting because I looked up some reviews of it. Robert Ebert did not care for this one
Mm.
because he basically said it didn't have a story, or characters, which I like. What?
Yeah.
Do like it's a very action oriented story, but it definitely has a
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. That's well, and the other I think what probably hurt the movie too in that regard is that they did have to go through some reshoots. The movie was directed by John McTiernan, who's listed on the credits as the director, and most people know him from Predator and Die Hard. Um, but the reshoots were actually directed by Michael Crichton, and they had to rework some stuff because I think they changed the ending and a few other things, and and usually when you hear about a movie that goes through that and then the budget goes up, it's like bad. It sort of poisons the well for that movie when it gets released.
Looking at you, Captain America 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I almost want to say at this point, I liked this movie enough that I want people to watch it, and knowing kind of what the gimmick is could be a spoiler.
Yeah.
So at this point, here, past here, there be spoilers. If the idea of a historical action movie that mimics the story of Beowulf sounds appealing to you, eh, and you like the idea of having Antonio Banderas playing an Arab, is, it is as amusing to you as it is to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it is a very action-heavy story. The
Mhm.
characters are kind of thin, but I think they all perform the roles they're supposed to.
Mhm.
Special shout out to, let's see here, who played the other Viking that he was more involved with?
Oh,
Who was his translator initially?
I can't remember.
One sec, let's just go ahead and pull this up. Oh man, 13th Warrior on IMDb has a slightly lower aggregate rating than Beverly Hills Cop 4.
Ooh.
I definitely enjoyed one of those more than the others.
Yeah.
I think it was okay. I think it was Dennis Storhoy
Yes, I think. Yeah, I believe that was him.
as
Yeah.
Herger. He was great. He had a lot of charisma as this Viking guy who was the main point of contact for Ahmed
Yeah.
because that's a carryover from the book where, at least as far as I wrote, he didn't actually learn much of the Viking language.
Okay.
I would say that having him there as the conduit for communication kind of means that Bullywhiff himself is kind of feels oddly absent from the movie.
Yeah, he does. He shows up, every now and then, and of course he's there for the big moments because he has to be because he's the Beowulf character
Right.
and
He's the king of this war party.
yeah, yeah, and but yeah, he's kind of just yeah, like you said, he's just kind of there to like give orders really most of the
Yep.
time.
Although he does get some really nice action sequences in the back half, he just isn't interacting with Ahmed all that much.
Yeah, they're no, you're right there. Yeah, they don't really talk to each other that much in the movie. which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a carryover from the novel. I would call that a situation where as soon as you have the scene where he basically learns Norse language and starts being able to speak it,
Yeah,
uh, you could have adjusted the script a little bit to give him some more interactions with this, heroic character.
yeah,
I also wonder if part of what hurts this movie is you kind of have to know what the gimmick is going in.
hmm yeah, yeah. If you don't really know, especially the historical context of it, yeah, you might get a little lost with what's going on.
Right? Like, I mean, they aren't really teaching much of Caliphate history in American schools. And while I did read Beowulf in high school, a lot of people just kind of remember it as that thing I had to read that one time
Yeah, yeah, same here. Yeah,
without remembering any real details of it.
yeah,
But I would say I give it a strongish recommend. Just with that caveat, it's gonna be
yeah,
it's a little bit strange, and maybe you have to be like a history obsessed guy like me to want to do it.
yeah, yeah.
What's your overall thoughts before we delve into the spoilers, Daniel?
I thought it was a good movie. Yeah, it's there's some parts with the plot that I thought could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like there was a little subplot in there with the some like kind of political stuff with the village.
Yeah, that kind of seemed to vanish, didn't it?
Yeah,
Wonder if that was part of what got cut.
probably. Yeah, because it seemed a little out of place. Um, so I kind of wish they had fleshed that out a little bit more.
Right? It's like you basically have a scheming son of the old king who he's killed his brothers and he's like scheming, and then it's like he stops at a certain point.
Because the one guy challenges the I think it was the Ahmed's friend is the he
Yeah,
challenges like the guy the
Herger
son's Harger, yeah, he challenges the son's the
champion. Yeah,
champion, yeah, to a duel and kills him, and then that's that.
yep,
Is Yeah, it just seemed a little
didn't pay off.
didn't pay off, yeah, but other than that, I thought it was a decent movie, yeah, um and I like the kind of the camaraderie that that Ahmed develops with the Vikings, because
Hmm.
at first they think he's just like he's just some
Some soft foreigner.
soft foreigner, but then
Yeah,
as the movie progresses and he starts fighting with them, he actually he gains their respect, and yeah,
yep. All right, so on to the spoiler section.
yes,
So, this is actually an idea I had had independently back when I was in high school and was reading it. And so I was like, I could tell that nobody in that class had read this book at the time because they would tell me, "Oh, that's just from Eaters of the Dead." Uh, so the first hint that you have that what the Wendell actually are is they find an artifact that looks very much like a sort of a fertility figure that you find uh, in archaeological remains from Stone Age Europe.
right, yeah,
Like they find this little porcelain figure. Let me go ahead and pull up an example here, which is kind of now regarded as a representation of a pregnant woman.
yes, it's something like that, yeah,
And so they find this among the things that the Wendell have left behind. They figure out that the Wendell, when they cut off the arm, it's just a human-ish hand under there. The Wendell are some sort of primitive tribe, possibly relict Viking, or not Vikings, relict Neanderthals,
yes, yeah,
which is a really cool idea because what this basically turns the movie into it's Vikings versus cavemen.
yeah,
The one detail that did strike me as slightly odd. So it turns out that the fire worm was actually the Wendell riding on their horses holding torches.
hmm
It seemed a little bit odd to me that the Wendell would have horse riding, considering how primitive they were.
yeah.
I haven't gotten far enough in the book to know if that's still part of it. That could have also just been a thing that they had to throw in to kind of explain in universe why the Wendell were so devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they did have the historically accurate element that cavemen didn't really have bow and arrow, at least not for at least the Neanderthals didn't. I
Yeah.
don't even think the Neanderthals had the atlatl spears they were shown, but basically they have these spear throwers where you have a long stick that you use to give yourself more leverage when you throw a dart,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they used those to good effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And they wore bear hides too.
Yep, they think they're bears.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was the big aha moment in there when he's like, "Oh, they think they're bears and bears are in caves." And like, "Oh, well, let's find some caves." Yeah.
Yep, and so they they fight them off a couple of times. They and then the 13 warriors, at least the remainers of them, raid the cave network where the Wendell live,
Yeah.
and where they kind of recapitulate where they kind of recast the story of Beowulf is that Bullywhip goes in to fight the woman who is like called the mother of the Wendell,
Right. Yeah.
um, who he kills her, but she manages to poison him with a dagger dipped in snake poison that she had, which is
Yeah.
related to how Beowulf died in the original story, which he fought off a dragon but died of its venom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and then they manage to raid the cave, and then they get out, and they
Yep,
go back to the village, and where the remaining Wendell uh, try to attack, but they find them off.
yep. And King Bullywolf he goes out like a boss because he was succumbing to the poison, but he comes out and
Yeah.
manages to get a real fight going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Warriors like Vikings. Yeah, they're like, well, I'm not gonna. I don't want to die in some bed.
Right.
I want to, die fighting. Yeah,
Yep. I need to go to Valhalla.
yeah,
And so they save the day, and Ahmed goes home to write the story of King Bullywolf. The end.
yep,
Now I'll say that as I describe it, it doesn't sound as interesting as it actually was to experience it.
yeah,
It's because it was very well shot from an action perspective. Like as they're sneaking into the cave, you can feel the tension at every moment.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When I like that part where they're in the cave and they have to the swing on these ropes in the waterfall, and Bender is just like, I don't do well with heights.
Yes. But so overall, I'd say I really enjoyed this. It kind of felt like it was made specifically for my nerdy / historical interests, just because
Yeah,
it's a weird mashup, Vikings versus cavemen. And it's all done in a way that's somewhat historically plausible. Like
yeah,
if there were going to be remnant Neanderthals anywhere, Scandinavia actually makes sense for that.
yeah, yeah. Given the terrain and the climate, yeah,
The terrain, the climate, and Scandinavia is deceptively large if you look at it on the map.
yeah, it
There's
is.
there's a lot of spots where you could have isolated tribes of Neanderthals still alive.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a bit like Alaska.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. Lots of mountains, lots of places to hide.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like overall, I very much enjoyed myself. I can see the criticisms of it. I definitely didn't really think about the criticisms as much as I was watching it. They kept my attention. Uh, I'm trying very hard to communicate how much I liked this movie, but I feel like I'm adding too many caveats.
yeah,
Yeah, recommend if you're just in the mood for a good action movie.
yeah. I think so too. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah,
So
we
if
have
you
to
want
rent
to,
it.
yeah, you have to rent it. Although it's not that expensive to rent. This was what, like four
Four
bucks.
bucks. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll also say that part of the reason I feel like I had to add some caveats to it is I tried to explain the concept of it to my father and a friend, and they both weren't terribly interested. Like, oh,
Yeah. Oh.
can't even fake it because I'm clearly excited, huh? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of tells me that why this movie was kind of a bomb because
Yeah. Just
I'm kind of surprised it got greenlit in the first place. Really.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's a Michael Crichton novel, and of course, that's the guy that wrote Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I probably gave it a
So
lot of traction.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The studio wanted some of that Jurassic Park money, and
Yeah,
mm.
it was a Touchstone Pictures movie.
Oh, okay, so it was Disney.
Yep, which makes it even more surprising that it got made when you really think about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Then again, Touchstone kind of at least in when this came out, what 98, 99,
yeah, somewhere
uh,
in there.
uh, 99. Touchstone had a lot more independence than it. This was before it got shut down.
Yeah,
Anyway, I believe that is all the news that's fit to print about this movie.
indeed. Yes. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it as always.
Mhm.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, ring the bell, all that good stuff, and we'll be back on for our at our regularly scheduled day and time, which is
As far as I'm aware,
okay.
interesting things are happening at work this week. I do not know if I'm busy Thursday or not. So
Oh, okay.
we may have another odd scheduled time.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be back when we're back. Let me just put it that way.
Yes, indeed.
All right. See you next time,
Yep.
everybody.
Good night.